Capitola Black Recordings presents an unabridged recording of The Lost Jewel by Charlotte Marie Tucker, or A Lady of England. Chapter 1. The Jewel and its Wearer. What if he should sleep till the morning? Such was the mental reflection of Maurice Summers, as for the 100th time the weary boy turned his drowsy eyes towards the spot where, seated in his red velvet easy-chair, Sir John was enjoying a comfortable slumber. Maurice had arrived late in the evening at the house of his uncle in London, had been received with such condescending hospitality as a rich man of kind heart but not refined nature shows to a needy relation, had answered shyly a few questions about his journey and his late home, put in a loud, patronizing tone, and had partaken of refreshments while his uncle stretched himself at ease on the velvet chair before mentioned. Ere the slices of cold ham and eggs had been discussed by the hungry boy, Sir John had lost in sleep all recollection of the presence of so insignificant an individual. Maurice sat in profound silence at the table, afraid of disturbing by any movement the repose of his relative and host. The uncle and nephew formed a remarkable contrast. Sir John's features might still have been termed handsome, but the rounded outlines, the purple-tinged cheek, and the full lower lip slightly protruded told of habitual self-indulgence. He was a man whom fortune had so loaded with her gifts that natural intelligence of mind and energy of character had been cramped and stifled beneath them. He had lived but for enjoyment, and had found it, till enjoyment had sunk into satiety. The stimulus of necessity had never been felt. Sir John knew not the spur of ambition. The soft-cushioned armchair in which he now reclined was the emblem of what had been his position through life from the hour when his father's tenants had first drunk the health of the baronet's heir in tankards of flowing ale. Maurice Somers was an orphan, and a poor one. One might have guessed both facts from the black dress of homely material which hung loosely on his slight, delicate frame, his pale cheek, his deep sunken eyes already wearing the thoughtful, anxious expression so painful to see in childhood. He had the shy, almost timid manner of one who has known little of the world, or has known it only by its frowns. Maurice was a retiring, meditative boy, whose intellectual powers had outstripped his physical, whose thoughts flowed more rapidly than his words, who felt keenly, but seldom expressed his feelings save by the earnest glance of the eye, the sudden flush of the cheek. Sir John slept long. His slumbers appeared interminable to his nephew. There was little in the apartment to attract the attention of the boy. Furniture solid and handsome, a sideboard of carved oak supporting a large silver salver, and 2 lamps surmounting columns of bronze, a few framed portraits on the wall, and a pedigree hung over the door at a height to defy inspection. These, with a clock on the mantelpiece, constituted almost the only objects within the view of Maurice Somers. On the clock the boy's eye most frequently rested. It was one of those skeleton timepieces which exposed all their works to sight, and the child surveyed curiously from his seat the mysterious wheel upon wheel and chain upon chain of the complicated machine. As he watched the restless pendulum swaying to and fro, like the beating pulse which sends life through a human frame, he strove vainly to connect cause with effect, and comprehend how the motion of that pendulum could draw round the slowly revolving wheels. Time after time Maurice listened, as when the gilt hand touched the quarters, a silvery chime rang out, and broke the oppressive stillness within the room, which was rendered only more oppressive to the boy's unaccustomed ear by the almost ceaseless roll of carriages without. There was something in the soft music of those chimes which called into the orphan's mind a flood of tender recollections. He thought of his own village church in far Devon, and the sweet bells from its ivy-mantled tower which so oft had called him to the house of prayer. He seemed to feel again the touch of his mother's hand as they walked together across the verdant meadow where they used to seek for their favorite wildflowers. The broken stile rose before the eye of memory, on the top round of which Maurice had stood so proudly the first time that he had succeeded in climbing it without the aid of a friendly hand. and Maurice's thoughts wandered to the village churchyard and its mounds of verdant green, above all, to that quiet corner where, almost hidden by the large old yew tree, a simple gravestone bore the names of the pastor and his wife, lovely in their lives and in their deaths not divided. As the orphan boy had stretched himself beside that stone, he had felt as if all his world of happiness were buried for ever in that grave. The wide world held not, and never would hold, a spot more sacred to the heart of Maurice. Then the stream of thought flowed on from the sad but beautiful past to the misty, untried future. Maurice had come to the home of one who, though nearly related to the boy, was yet to him a perfect stranger. He had come as a helpless dependent. His earthly fate lay in the hands of that man whose countenance as he slumbered in his chair Maurice studied with anxious attention. He had never seen his uncle before that evening, but Sir John had been the hero of many a tale which his mother had left him of her childhood, and Maurice's fancy had formed an image strangely differing from the original now before him. Could that heavy, indolent-looking form, those inanimate features, really belong to the once curly-headed boy who had climbed the high tree for the magpie's nest, who had plunged into the mill-pond to save his drowning puppy, and whose merry voice used to ring through the halls of Grandmont as he raced through them with his younger brother? What a change must time have wrought! Maurice was vainly endeavoring to reconcile his own fancies with the reality which he saw, as unlike each other as the grey towers of the baronet's birthplace, from his brick-built, luxurious London mansion, when the object of his reflections suddenly awoke, stretched himself, and looked at the clock. "Almost 11. Well, it is time, I should say, for Albina to make her appearance, or she will not be ready when Lady Fawcett calls for her. These girls take as long in dressing themselves out for a ball as a man of war in rigging out for a voyage. You here yet, Maurice, my man? Why, you should have been in bed an hour ago, staying up to see your cousin in her finery, eh?" Maurice had not time to reply, for a light rustling was heard on the stairs, and the next minute the door unclosed, and a young lady attired in the height of fashion fluttered into the apartment. Maurice, fresh from his rural retirement, and knowing nothing of fine ladies but from books, was almost dazzled by the fair apparition suddenly presented to his view. Albina was a beautiful girl, and her dress set off to advantage the natural advantages which she possessed. Exquisite flowers drooped from her glossy brown hair, arranged with artistic skill, corresponding with the rosebuds which looped up the robe of pink tulle, floating like gossamer over the rich satin beneath. Arm and neck sparkled with brilliance, which o'er their dazzling whiteness shone like dew on lily spring, and nothing was omitted which could add to an additional attraction of that of youth and beauty. "What a lovely soul," thought Maurice, "must dwell in so charming a form! How prone are we to judge of the jewel by the casket or the pearl by the outer shell!" "Albina, my dear, here's your cousin Maurice," was the introduction given by Sir John, and the tips of a delicate white glove were graciously extended to the boy. "I'm glad for once you are down in time," pursued the baronet. "Lady Fawcett is not of a temper to stand waiting."
"Oh, she's an old nag!" exclaimed Albina. "But she deserved to have her patience tried for appointing so ridiculously early an hour." Here the sleepy Maurice opened his eyes wide with surprise. "We shall hardly find the candles lighted, and I hate to be the first in the room. But," added the young lady with nonchalance, playing with her feather-tipped fan, "I shall have my own way about coming home, and shall keep up the selfish old creature till 4 o'clock in the morning. I always like to return by daylight. Don't you wish you were coming with me?" she added, turning to Maurice with a smile. "I would rather go to bed," said the boy, who had for half the day been rattling along in a railway train. The baronet and his daughter laughed. "You're a rustic indeed," said the latter. "I dare say you are accustomed, like the birds, to be up with the sun and to go to roost when he sets. Well, I was out last night and the night before, to say nothing of a botanical fête, and tomorrow I have 2 parties, and on Saturday a morning concert and opera in the evening."
"How dreadfully tired you will be on Sunday!" exclaimed the unsophisticated Maurice.
"Oh, this is what I call life," said Albina. Yours has been mere vegetation, mere stagnation. I could not exist without excitement and amusement. Papa's great grievance is that Grandmont is only 10 miles from town, scarcely out of reach of the grinding organs, but I am sure that if I had been planted for 6 months of the year on a dreary Welsh mountain or a wild Scottish moor, I should have died long ago from sheer ennui."
The baronet had risen from his chair, and standing with his hands behind him and his back to the mantelpiece, was surveying with a parent's partial eye his fair daughter in her splendid attire. A look of displeasure, however, now crossed his face as he said, "How is this, Albina? I thought that I had desired you never wear the atma when you were going out at night. It is far too valuable to be risked."
"I suppose that is your spoiled child's perverseness, papa," replied Albina. "But there is nothing that I like wearing so well. Is it not beautiful?" she inquired of Maurice, indicating a diamond of extraordinary size which she wore in place of a brooch.
"Yes," replied Maurice, "but not at all more beautiful than the jewels round your neck and your lovely bracelets."
"Oh, my dear child, that remark shows your utter ignorance upon the subject. This one diamond is worth 50 times more than all the rest put together."
"Grandmont Hall and all its broad acres to boot," added Sir John. Maurice looked at the jewel with astonishment. "It does not sparkle so much as the others," he observed.
"No, you are right there," said Albina. "Like other gems from the East, it is clumsily set and badly cut. I am always teasing Papa to send it to the jeweler, but he says that it would lose so many carats' weight in the cutting that it would be worth I don't know how many thousands of pounds less in its civilized shape than it is now in its barbaric grandeur."
"Besides," interrupted Sir John, "I would not trust it into any jeweller's hands." "Such a little thing, and yet so precious," said the wondering Maurice.
"Have you never heard of the Koh-i-Noor?" asked Albina. "You will see it in the Crystal Palace in Hyde Park. That jewel, which a baby could hide in its fist, would be in itself a dowry for a princess. It is certainly very splendid, but we would not change the Atma for the Koh-i-Noor."
"The jewels have strange names," observed Maurice. "Koh-i-Noor," said Sir John, "signifies mountain of light, and Atma is the term for the soul, both words being of Eastern." He was interrupted by a loud knock at the door. Albina languidly rose from her seat and motioned to Maurice to place her pink opera cloak on her shoulders. "Give me the Atma, my love," said the baronet. "I will lock it up in my secretary till tomorrow."
"Oh, really, you must excuse me," exclaimed the young lady. "I have set my heart on wearing it tonight, just tonight. I am so anxious that Lady Mary should see it. She always wears her diamond tiara as though she thought that no one had a jewel but herself. Miss Grant says that she could swear that the tiara is nothing but paste, and I do believe that she is right."
"Lady Mary may wear what she pleases," said Sir John, "but I really can't allow—" The servant entered and announced that her ladyship was waiting.
"I will be so careful, I promise you I will. You must not say anything this time, like a dear good papa," exclaimed Albina, and without waiting for further expostulation, the young lady hurried out of the apartment.
"Wayward girl, just like her," said the baronet good-humouredly. "See what becomes of spoiling an only child. I hope she will be careful," he added more gravely, resuming his seat on the red velvet chair. "An accident might occur, and I'd as soon lose my right hand as the Atma. Thomas," he called out to the servant, "bring me my refreshment."
Thank you for listening to Capitola Black Recordings. I hope you have enjoyed this recording of The Lost Jewel by Charlotte Marie Tucker.